Hello and welcome back to the worst Warmachine channel on the internet. I'm Malorian, and this is Malorian Weekly. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is hurting yourself in Warmachine. That's right, we're going to be talking about times in the game where you're going to be hurting yourself and doing damage to your own pieces on purpose. Now, I know it's April 1st and this sounds like a silly topic. Don't worry, my April 1st video is already out there. That's not what this is. But there's real times where you want to be taking damage in the game of Warmachine. Now, there's going to be a couple of different examples we're going to be really talking about going through this. We're going to be talking about where you allow your opponent to be doing basically a free strike and doing damage to you for free because, hey, like apparently it's a gift to the opponent. We're also going to be talking about where you're going to be damaging your own models and making sure that you get some damage in that way. We're also going to be talking about times where you're going to allow terrain to be doing damage to you. And again, in all these cases, it's going to seem walking in like, why would you ever want to do that? I'm sure a new player hearing this, you know, especially if they're coming from 40K or something like that, where like, that's not even possible, right? There are no free strikes. I can't like, you know, attack my own pieces. So, and like usually terrain's not hurting me. So like, what is this? And even if it was possible, why in the world would you actually want to do that? And that's exactly why I was requested to do this video, and that's why we're going to be going over this now. So let's go over that first one, which is talking about letting your opponent's models do extra damage to you, which is typically through a free strike. Now, there's a couple of different reasons or ways this might actually be happening, but let's start with the very obvious first one, where I want to go past something and take a free strike. So a free strike is when I enter something's melee range and then I leave it, then it gets a free attack against me. +2 to hit, boosted damage. Oh boy, that's going to hurt. That's the whole reason why facings matter in the Warmachine, right? So that we have these little combat arcs and it's like, all right, I'm going to be covering this. And if you enter and leave this, I get an extra hit against you, right? If I'm dumb and I'm going this way, that means you can sneak past me the other way. You know, that type of a thing. So it really controls things. It really makes sure that you can't just run past the infantry in the front and get to the back. That's the idea of it. So then why would you be wanting to take that free strike? And I think the very easy way to say that is that obviously whatever is in the back is a higher value. That's something that you just really want to be getting to. And I think one of the easiest ones to be starting with is the idea of a jack, a heavy, taking a free strike from infantry. And I see this where like, you know, some infantry runs up, they engage a heavy, and then they don't want to go anywhere. You know, they might be able to charge something else or go somewhere else, but they're not doing it because they don't want to be taking a free strike. And I think the reason why they do that, it's like, wow, you know, like +2 to hit, boosted damage. I mean, like, oh, can you imagine me just taking all this damage from this infantry model for no good reason? No, it's better off for me to stay here and punch this one little infantry model type thing. But I think if we just think about it, right, most heavies have low defense. Again, we could be talking about other stuff like a circle warp wolf or something, but let's just keep it easy to a jack right now. So we're talking like defense like 10 or 11, maybe a 12 if we're fancy. And so like odds are we're probably going to get hit anyway. So that +2 part isn't really a big factor. It's in there, but it's not a major factor. Well, let's talk about that boosted damage. Well, usually these heavies have somewhere between like, let's say armor 18 to armor like 23, but let's go with like the lower one of 18. Well, if we're talking about like a standard, you know, smuck infantry that are like POW 10s, what does that actually mean? Well, what that means is if I roll 3 dice on average, I should be getting, you know, 10.5 type thing as my dead on average, which means to an armor 18 thing, 2.5 damage. That's it. That's what you're scared of, is taking 2.5 damage. Sure, I mean there's dice in there as well, and what happens if you roll 3 6s, but it's just as likely that you're gonna roll 3 1s. And again, this is an odds curve, and I mean the vast majority of the numbers are in the middle, so you'll be losing somewhere around 2.5 boxes. And who cares about that, right? Even if you're taking free strikes from 3 different one of those infantry models, together, they should be doing about 7.5 damage. In fact, the more free strikes you trigger, the more to that average that should actually work, right? If I'm rolling 1 dice, the variance is equal all the way across. The more dice I roll, the more average of a result I should be seeing. So 7.5 damage in 3 different portions of 2.5 spread out, yeah, who cares? That's, even if it goes all in one column, you probably still can't even cripple a system. That's nothing. Meanwhile, instead of wasting my time going after this infantry model, I can actually be going after that heavy, that Archon, whatever there's a high value thing that's further on. So super, super obvious that it's worth taking that free strike. Now, let's go to the next one, though. We're like, okay, Malorian, there's schmuck infantry out there, but what if we talk about like a weapon master? What if you're engaged by like a POW 12 weapon master? You don't want to be taking that damage, right? What if they roll 4 6s and they just like rip you in half type thing? Well, again, you're probably focusing on the worst possible case, but what's even the average? If we say that they're a POW 12 weapon master and we're going to stick with an armor 18 heavy, sure, why not? Well, again, odds are they're going to hit you anyway, so who cares about the +2? But if they're rolling 4 dice damage, the average there is going to be then 14. 14 and 12 is going to mean that it's going to be dice off 6. That means you're doing 8 damage. Okay, 8 is significant, but again, much like we said with the 3 infantry doing 7.5, even if you put that all in one column, odds are you're not crippling anything. So same thing here, even on that average there, it's not going to do it. It's more risk, right? But it still shouldn't do anything significant to you. And again, you could stay there and punch that one weapon master, but it's a lot better for you to try going after that heavy at the end. Hell, if you stay where you are and try punching those few weapon masters rather than taking that free strike, next turn that heavy is probably coming to take you out anyway. So when you think about the peace trade, you're better off getting in there and taking out that heavy and leaving any weapon masters to decide, like, am I going to go backwards and now try and go after this heavy to try and finish it off? Either way, you're up on that peace trade, getting to where you want to be. Now, what if you're engaged with multiple, weapon masters? At what point is the risk really going to be worth it? And I think this is a good thing where we can say, well, it's going to be really situation dependent. You're going to have to be thinking about what's your damage grid looking like, what's the potential tax you'll be taking, what's the math behind it. Again, I keep on trying to stress the math. I know it's boring, but it's really important here. But then more importantly, what's the reward, right? We work out the risk, but then what's over there, right? Can I get to a heavy? What are the odds I can actually take it out? Because if I'm going to take free strikes just to go there and maybe bash it up a bit and not take it out, if they have a mechanic there, probably not worth it, right? So all these things have to be factored in. But I mean, if it's as simple as like take one free strike, go out, take a heavy, yeah, take that every single time. Now, as we said, that calculation of risk versus reward is going to change. So we're talking about nice, safe heavies going through and taking that free strike. Well, what about things that are not heavies? What if we have like super solos where I don't have that big, amount of armor? I might have okay armor and some boxes, but is that worth it? Well, I think, again, you're going to have to do that calculation, right? If I have a 5-box solo and I work out the average to be like, oh, you should just be doing X damage to me. If I can survive that on average and then get to a higher value target that I need to take out, I might want to be taking those odds and saying, you know what, go ahead, whether I have 1 box or 5 or whatever, I'm still active. And it's more important to me in this peace trade that I take out that critical piece over there. And I think that then even gets to the point where we talk about regular infantry, right? When would I be doing this with regular infantry where like the odds are just that you're going to die? Why would I just be going through when I know that on average, my infantry is going to die? Again, it's that risk versus reward. Maybe if I can get that solo there, well, then all of a sudden, if I take out that key solo for an infantry model, holy crow, it's worth it. Maybe I have to charge through 3 models because first one dies, second one dies. third one got through. Okay, now I could take out this solo and it's a game changer. And the idea that I'm trading like 3 cheap infantry to take out that game important solo, wow, that could be huge. Especially if like that solo scoring a flag, especially if scenario is a big deal. Hell, maybe I need just to run through the lines, not to kill anything, but just to get into a zone so I can contest it and make it so that I just don't automatically lose on scenario, right? The odds of my person dying is X. The odds of me losing by scenario if I don't contest that might be 100%. So again, risk versus reward, you just might want to take those free strikes and see what happens. So always do the math, and if it's really simple, please take it. Now, that seemed to be like that'd be the end of free strikes, but we're not even done with free strikes yet. We've been talking about free strikes where you're going forward. You might be wanting to take a free strike because you're going backwards. You might be in a spot where your heavy is, we're in one of those situations where like, oh, there's like an enemy heavy I can get to, but I can't take it out, and if I go and take a free strike, I'm just going to make it easier for them to take my jack out. I'm just in a bad position. I need to buy some time. Well, that's in a case where you might be backing up your heavy to take it out of threat range. So sure, you're going to be taking some damage for nothing, right? When you move backwards, unless you have a gun or something like that, you're just going to be taking a big chunk of damage and then get nothing for it. Well, the thing that you're getting for it is saving your heavy. The idea that since you're moving backwards, you're moving out of threat range and you're preserving your heavy for later, right? Again, if you have a gun or something, that could be even more obvious depending on what the POW is and the armor. That whole risk reward stuff comes in again. But I mean, there's times where it's like, hey, I'm engaged with 3 weapon masters. If I let them attack me, they're going to do some serious damage. But hey, I can move back. Maybe I have a mechanic. But the main thing is that now that heavy of theirs can't take me. Other pieces of mine might be able to shoot those weapon masters or get in the way, something. And I can now set myself up in a better position for this piece trading. Thinking about chess where like sometimes your pieces are moving defensively because they're in danger. It's that kind of idea. And sure, you're losing some damage for it, but it's worth it. So again, it's going to hurt your brain. You're going to be like, why would I do this? I'm just taking damage and losing ground. But sometimes that's what you need to win the end game. So that's free strikes. That's time where you're letting your opponents do damage to you. When would you be doing damage to yourself? You're not even using your opponent at all. You're just straight up attacking your own stuff. Well, there's a lot of times where you might want to be doing that. Sometimes if it's something for corpse or soul collection, something like that, where if you kill your own models, you're getting these other resources from the death of your own models. So that might be something to be thinking about. Again, if you have a model like that though, look at it closely, because even if it does collect from friendly, sometimes the friendly models have to die from enemy attacks or something like that. Again, look for those things, because sometimes you can kill your own stuff with like an Electro Leap, and then that's not, a friendly attack or something like that. So depending on the definition, you might have a workaround. But look at things like that where you can be then loading up on the resources you can actually be getting later. Another reason why you might be killing your own stuff is because it's just in the way, Maybe you made a misplay and you moved up and now it's blocking a charge lane or whatever it was. Now you need this to be out of the way, right? This model was there. Maybe the activations are wrong. Maybe it already went or whatever it is. And I could do so much more if this thing was gone. There's been a lot of times where I come into that and I can sit there and I can cry, or this random model over here with a gun can shoot in the back there, and now it's not there anymore. So what's for those things? There's certainly times where it seems wrong to be killing like your own infantry or even like a solo, but if it means that's opening up like a clear lane so you can get a heavy onto their heavy, you can get into a game-winning scenario point or something like that, that can be huge. And while we're talking about scenario, you might be killing your own stuff to score on scenario. And where this comes up is more things like units trying to score zones, because in order for a unit to score a circle, every single model in there has to be in the zone. And I've seen that where people like measure out and be like, oh man, I could score that, but this one model just can't barely run in there. Well, I guess I'll write that off, when really what you could do is, let's say it's a 10-man unit, 9 of them run in, the last one, pew, shoot him in the back, do whatever you need to do, kill it, and then great, now all 9 of 9 models are in the zone and you're going to score it. So another thing, like, hooray, you know, it makes sense when you think about what you're trying to do to kill your own model. The other reason why you might be trying to kill your own stuff, we kind of already talked about it a little bit there, but the idea that there'll be like splash damage happening from that. So maybe it's electro leaps. Maybe you're shooting your own models so that the lightning can electro leap over to the enemy. You don't really care. Like maybe your model has such high armor that you have, again, predictably low damage, or maybe who cares, right? I'm going to shoot this infantry model. I don't care if it dies, but if her electro leaps and kills this key model of theirs, completely worth it, right? Or maybe it's like an area effect attack, right? This is an AoE 5, so this model I can't really see. I could be shooting in there and deviate, but if I want to know that this is where that AoE is going to land, sorry, infantry member number 36 or whatever they are, run into there. I'm going to shoot my own model. Hey, you might be stealth, but mine is I'm going to hit it. That AoE is going to go right there. Boost damage on those key ones I want to get. Great, they're gone. Or maybe this is something where I'm trying to do that to a caster, right? I got a caster out of line of sight. It's sneaky. It's maybe stealth or it's behind a building, but I run up a light or a heavy so that when I do my AoEs, I can now be clipping it and doing damage to it, right? Things like that you might be trying to arrange so that even though you're damaging your own stuff, you really care about the splash damage that's happening to the enemy models there at the same time. Again, like with lots of these things, it's not like you're going to be seeing them every single game, but it's one of these things that if you have it in your quiver, in your repertoire, where like, you know what, these are one of the options I can do, you're going to start seeing them and you're going to start seeing where they're going to really help you. Now, let's go to the last one, which where we said about talking about terrain damaging you. Now, not all people always use these types of terrain. Some people just use regular, like, oh, this is rubble, this is a wall, this is whatever. But of course, there's the other ones where they're on fire, there's acid, there's this type of stuff where they're actually doing damage to you if you go into them, kind of. You know, there's the ones where they might automatically do a point to you. Maybe it's like one of those enemy clouds, or maybe it's the regular ones where you have now the continuous effect and it might affect you later. So why would you be doing this to your own people? Well, I think this goes really hand in hand with the whole free strike idea where it's risk versus reward, right? Maybe you're going into this and then it's going to be a thing where, hey, sure, I'll be taking 1 point on this solo, but it's an 8-box solo. Who cares if it has 1 box off of it? I used to do that all the time when I was playing Cephalix, where there might be like an acid pool, and then I'd be just going into it with my overlords, because who cares? I got 5 boxes. If I lose 1, if I lose 2, 3, 4, I'm still alive. I'm still spraying and doing whatever I need. There's also the idea with continuous that it might not do anything at all, right? The idea that I'm going through this flaming whatever and that I'm being lit on fire seems bad, but will that even matter? On my turn, I get to roll a dice. On a 1 or a 2, nothing happens. It's like I never went through it. It's just going to disappear and go away. Now, Malorian, that's a 1 in 3 chance. Do I really want to be betting my infantry on that? Again, risk versus reward. But here's another thing. Will your infantry even be there? Usually in the time where you're considering going through this, you're probably doing it because you're attacking something. You're going after the enemy. You're going into the peace trade. And so if I'm sending these pieces forward, they're on the table to be removed. You know, it's almost the same idea where when I used to be playing a hordes type of list, when I was going for my big alpha, I would go really hot on all of my beasts, having lots of fury on them. The reason being that I probably won't have any fury issues on my turn, because unless I'm way in the lead, you're probably going to kill some of my heavies, so I don't have that much to actually remove. And it's the same idea here. If I'm sending in my infantry and they're all on fire, well, first of all, out of all those 10 models that went up there, a third of them, the fire is going to go out, and then there's all the ones that you were going to kill anyway that I don't need to worry about. Now, obviously with all this, I'm not going to just be running my models through fire for no reason and just see like, well, let's see what happens. But maybe if I charge through this fire, I can be attacking your infantry and getting the alpha. And you think I won't do it because I'll light myself on fire, but I sure will, because I'll get the alpha on you. I'm going to start that peace trade, and then hell, like I said, you might have killed me, the fire might just go out, and it's better for me to actually get that jump on that attrition, on that peace trade. And again, there's all these things for risk and reward and all the rest of it, but that's what you got to keep in mind, is that again, I think it's like the idea of like the free strike and rolling all the sixes, that we think in our mind of what the worst case scenario is. Like, oh my God, you know, like they're going to roll those sixes. And the same thing here, like, I'm just going to lose my model. But then you don't really realize that this is a delayed thing and it might not even matter anyway. Now, I only mentioned 3 things that I wanted to cover, and that's already the 3, but as a little bonus fourth, I want to be throwing in the very small parts where models actually get bonuses from being damaged. And so some of the things here, like there's going to be very niche, but let's say we have our fire eaters from the trolls, right? They do boosted damage if they go on fire. So you might be running through fire to light yourself on fire because you have rules that work better if you're on fire. Or maybe you're Cephalix, right? Whenever you take damage, I get to have an extra focus put on me. I love it sometimes where I'm trying to like arrange a charge. It's like, I'm going to lose a focus just to declare a charge. But if I do it like this, I'll take a free strike. So I'll do it, get the free strike, get my focus back. Hooray, that's an extra hit I'm doing against your heavy, right? So the reason why I don't want to include this as like a primary 3 is because these will be very, very, very rare, because it's going to be very specific with the things you have. But again, if you have these things, if you have models in your army that get a bonus from being damaged, don't assume that that damage has to come from the enemy. Think about the times where you might be actually wanting to be doing that damage to yourself to actually get the bonuses that are there on the card. So there you go. There's the reasons why you might want to hurt yourself in Warmachine. It's going to seem backwards, but even if you just challenge yourself in your next game, your next 5 games, whatever it is, look for those situations. Do that calculation of risk versus reward. And I think you'll be very surprised how many times it comes up that's actually in your benefit to take that risk, to take that free strike, to go through that flaming terrain or whatever it is, and then being surprising your opponent and being like, damn, I didn't think you're going to do that. And now I lost this critical piece and this game is completely different. So there you go. There's the entire thing. Again, if you have any comments on this, I love having this back and forth. Please post down below. But otherwise, we'll catch you later. Bye.